They always imagined you as an easy target, a solo figure walking through a hostile crowd with no one at your back. The story they told themselves kept them brave. Then the curtain lifted. The secret came out, and the air shifted in a way they could not explain. They felt a presence in the room whenever your name surfaced. Plans bent. Doors opened that were supposed to be locked. The timing around you felt too precise to be coincidence. They thought force would corner you, yet force scattered like dust in wind the moment it met what stood with you. They did not just see your strength. They felt the weight of what shields you. That realization chilled them, because it exposed the limits of their reach. They had courage only when you were unguarded. Now their courage shakes, because the ground is no longer theirs. You did not grow louder. Something around you grew undeniable. True protection rarely speaks. It lets outcomes do the talking. It moves quietly while the room debates. Schemes fail with no dramatic scene. Accusations dry out before they can light a fire. Gossip runs in circles until it collapses from exhaustion. You do not need to swing, because storms change direction on their own when your steps align with something higher, older, colder. They try to tell themselves you just got lucky. They whisper that you fell upward. Yet the pattern keeps repeating, and patterns become proof. They tested your edges and found a perimeter they could not breach. That perimeter is not noise. It is a wall made of presence, patience, and principle. The more they press, the more the wall hardens. The more they plot, the more their hands reveal tremors. What terrifies them is the simplicity. You walk, and what is meant to collide with you moves aside as if warned. Luck fades. Architecture remains. They threw setbacks with the confidence of veterans and watched each one turn into scaffolding that lifted you higher. They spun narratives and watched those threads tangle around their own ankles. They tried to make allies of your shadows and learned those shadows bow to your light. Survival might have been dismissed as chance once. Not anymore. Survival evolved into symmetry, into timing that keeps arriving on schedule, into a rhythm that does not miss. That is not a coin toss. That is structure. Their fear grows because they now understand that every future strike will face the same invisible defense. They will not say it aloud, but you can see the knowledge in their eyes. They know your path is now guarded by more than willpower. They know a field surrounds you that converts harm into harvest. And they know they cannot copy it, because borrowed masks do not impress the truth. Part of what protects you is simple. Your standards stand at the gates. You do not hand out access like confetti. You do not discount your worth to keep peace. Boundaries turned into sentries. Every request crosses a checkpoint. Every person faces a quiet scan. They once counted on your softness, on that old habit of explaining yourself to keep others comfortable. That habit is gone. You stopped arguing and started enforcing. You stopped entertaining and started evaluating. That change alone terrifies manipulators, because manipulation needs open doors. Your doors close with quiet certainty. They push and the latch does not move. They sulk and nothing shifts. Standards are not loud, they are final. When standards protect you, the wrong people disqualify themselves without a speech from you. That is a cleaner protection than any guard with a weapon. It is the house training the world how to behave on entry. Another layer is the guard that boredom built. Your routine is a security detail disguised as daily life. Sleep cared for like treasure. Work done at the same hour without applause. Training that does not ask for motivation. Reading that feeds the mind before the world asks for opinions. They wanted you reactive, you became rhythmic. Rhythm defeats chaos because it refuses to accelerate for drama. While they spiked and crashed, you stacked and locked. Results compound in silence until they turn into a wall of credibility. That wall is protection because it answers lies with history. It answers questions with competence. It answers pressure with process. They cannot pull you into erratic battles when your day already belongs to a calendar that does not negotiate with noise. Discipline moves like a phalanx around you. Disorder cannot pierce it. And that is why their confidence fades whenever you stay on schedule. Awareness is posted on every corner. You trained your perception until patterns became loud. You hear tone, not just words. You watch habits, not just claims. You track the first red flag instead of waiting for the 10th. They once thrived because you wanted to believe. Now you prefer to know. That serenity they mislabel as coldness is simply the quiet of someone who sees. Awareness prevents ambush because it makes distance early and decisive. You do not have to expose anyone. You only have to adjust your proximity. You only have to stop sharing information. You only have to say no without ceremony. Predators grow bold around the blind. They become clumsy around the awake. Your calm is not emptiness, it is surveillance. And surveillance keeps you safe without chaos. They sense it. They feel watched by the very truth they tried to bury. That pressure breaks their timing before they even move. Your future guards you. Long horizons act like a shield. When decisions are weighed against who you intend to be in 5 years, traps look small and noisy. Short games lose their color. They invite you to petty wars, and you look past them to the architecture of your legacy. You are not proving a point. You are proving a pattern. That shift is terrifying to small hunters, because their bait is immediate. They cannot tempt someone who has sworn allegiance to the final scene. You invest in compounding reputation instead of instant applause. You pick silence today so that leverage arrives tomorrow. You let winds age until they are wine, not fireworks. Time becomes a loyal guardian when you build in a straight line. They measure today. You measure the axis. The axis does not bend for a rumor. It does not derail for a shove. It keeps carrying you, and they cannot stand that. Quiet allies stand in places your enemies cannot see. Not everyone who protects you speaks your name. Some just refuse to repeat the lie when it reaches their table. Some forward you an opportunity that changes a year. Some vouch for you when a room asks who can be trusted. You did not collect fans. You served people and left receipts of reliability. Those receipts turned into guardians. Reputation is armor that travels ahead of you, correcting narratives before you arrive. They tried to unite against you and discovered that doors they needed are attached to hands you helped long ago. That is the kind of protection that terrifies a schemer, because it cannot be bullied and it cannot be bought in a hurry. You invested in people without the arrogance of expecting a return. Life returned the investment anyway, but with interest they did not predict. There is a deeper guard, the one that lives inside your chest. Call it conscience. Call it prayer. Call it a covenant you keep in the dark. You drew a line with your soul and refused to negotiate past it. That inner oath attracts help when help is required. It also blocks what is not meant for you. No matter how much ego wants it, they thought advantage was anything you could grab. You learned protection sometimes says no for your own sake. So you listened. Saying no to the wrong path kept you from injuries they hoped to exploit. Saying yes only when peace answered back kept you out of rooms built of glass. They cannot compute this, they only chase. You align. Alignment looks slow until the day it moves the mountain. When mountains move, the crowd swears a miracle just happened. You know better. You simply stayed in agreement with what guards you. Results are the last guard, the one no accusation survives. Output is a shield that does not argue. It simply stands there. While they script dramas, you release work that feeds your name more than any defense ever could. The secret already walked into the light. Who protects you is not gossip and not a person with a spotlight. Your protectors are standards, discipline, awareness, time, allies, and a covenant with truth that does not blink. They are terrified because your defense is not a single wall they can scale. It is a city with many gates, and each gate knows your voice. Keep building that city. Keep your oath. Keep your rhythm. When the next wave comes, do not flinch. Protection loves the steady. And those who once lived on your collapse will keep discovering that the ground refuses to open under your feet. They will learn the hard way that you were never alone. Once you see patterns, you cannot be manipulated because patterns reveal the truth hidden in repetition. They can lie once, they can disguise themselves twice, but by the third time, their rhythm exposes them. People think deception is creativity, but most deception is recycled. The tone in their voice when they want something, the sudden warmth before betrayal, the silence before shifting blame. These are not accidents. They repeat them because that is all they know. You learn to watch the rhythm rather than the words. Awareness gave you clarity, and clarity took away their control. The moment you noticed the loop, manipulation loses its teeth. They still attempt their tricks, but you are already miles ahead, watching them stumble through the same choreography while you quietly plan the exit they never saw coming. Patterns are the fingerprints of character. They can polish their image, but they cannot hide their cycles. Betrayers always return to betrayal. Liars always lean back on lies. Envious people always return to poison. At first, you believed in change because you wanted to. You gave chances. You offered patience. You waited for growth. But eventually, awareness sharpened your sight. You stopped listening to their promises and started watching their consistency. Promises can be manipulated. Patterns cannot. That is when your world shifted. Instead of being trapped in their narrative, you started writing your own. They no longer guided your choices because you finally saw through the design of their behavior. And once the design is visible, it cannot hold you anymore. In relationships, manipulation thrives on unpredictability. They love to keep you guessing. They disappear to create fear, then reappear with affection to create relief. This cycle is a leash, pulling you back and forth until you mistake chaos for love. But once you see the pattern, the leash snaps. You stop reacting with desperation. You stop mistaking absence for punishment. You start seeing it for what it is, control disguised as affection. And when you stop playing along, their power ends. They cannot chain you to uncertainty anymore because you no longer respond the way they want. Awareness freed you from their rhythm. And freedom terrifies those who depend on your confusion to stay in control. In self-growth, manipulation often comes from within. Your mind plays the same tricks, whispering the same doubts, planning the same fears. You begin something new, and suddenly the same pattern arises. You quit when it gets hard. You delay when it gets uncomfortable. You sabotage when progress feels too close. Once you see that loop, you stop mistaking it for truth. You realize those whispers are not reality. They are habits. And habits can be broken. That awareness allows you to separate who you are from what your mind repeats. The cycle no longer tricks you into surrender. You learn to fight differently, to endure longer, to resist giving up. Once you see your own patterns, you stop being your own manipulator. That is when discipline replaces doubt. Snakes thrive on your blindness. They study your reactions and build their strategy on the assumption that you won't notice. They know which compliment makes you soften, which insult makes you defensive, which silence makes you insecure. They think they have control because you fall for the same cues each time. But when you step back and recognize the rhythm, the game ends. You stop softening where they want. You stop explaining when they accuse. You stop reacting when they withdraw. And suddenly, they no longer recognize you. They lose grip because they only train for the old you, the one trapped inside the loop. The new you is unplayable. You are not predictable anymore, but they are. And that imbalance is lethal. Psychology is clear. Most manipulation works because the victim wants the illusion to be true. People want to believe the apology is real. The promise is sincere. The affection is genuine. They ignore the pattern because truth is uncomfortable. But you refuse to be comforted by lies. You trained yourself to look past the single moment into the chain behind it. You measured not the apology, but the frequency. You judged not the gift, but the intention. You looked at the whole, not the part. And when you did, manipulation collapsed. Because manipulation can only survive in fragments. It dies when exposed to the entire picture.